The Ahmaud Arbery case has placed a spotlight on Glynn County and the work of police and prosecutors there. Our On Your Side investigation tonight shows it's just the latest in a string of cases that raise concerns about a history of a toxic culture and cover-ups that led to an explosive grand jury report and the criminal indictment of the Glynn County Police Chief and several ranking officers. As our Shelby Danielson has learned, the previous incidents show surprising parallels to the Arbery case.
How long, Georgia? How long, America? How long before they give justice to this family?
Concern that law enforcement in and around Glynn County, Georgia is compromised in the Ahmaud Arbery case has been expressed by people around the country.
The family should push for a change of venue for this trial.
Observers like Ron Davis, who lost his own son to murder, echoed the sentiments of the Arbery's attorneys and local friends like Jason Vaughn.
Our community as a whole is left asking questions about our policing agency.
From the start, Arbery's mother, Wanda Cooper, said police gave her misinformation when they first called to tell her her son was killed while committing a crime.
He went on to say that Ahmaud had been involved in a burglary. And in the midst of the burglary, Ahmaud was confronted by the homeowner.
That version of the story doesn't match the police report.
They impeded his path. They blocked his exits. They held guns, and at that point, he had no other choice but to fight for his life.
A series of district attorneys have either recused themselves or been replaced from the case due to conflicts of interest. Greg McMichael, who along with his son Travis was charged with felony murder of Arbery, is a former Glynn County police officer and chief investigator for the local DA Jackie Johnson. That relationship is blamed for the 2-month gap between the shooting and their arrest. Personnel records show Greg was stripped of his arrest powers from 2006 to 2014 and briefly suspended for falling behind on required police certifications. That same department garnered national attention in 2018.
He is not allowed in my house. This is not his house. This is not his house.
When Glynn County Sergeant Corey Sasser murdered his estranged wife, Katie Kettles, and her boyfriend before killing himself.
This is a department that is not necessarily following the rules and is kind of made up of a lot of rogue actors.
Darren Penn is an Atlanta attorney representing Kettle's mother, who is suing the department for allegedly mishandling her daughter's case.
Katie made the comment that the Glynn County Police Department will do nothing until someone leaves here out of a body bag.
Penn says Kettles complained to the department repeatedly, but they failed to arrest Sasser, who was one of their own.
Just the overall hesitancy to do anything about it, to investigate them, to make any kind of arrests.
Back in 2010, Sasser shot and killed Caroline Small in her car, a 35-year-old unarmed mother of 2. According to reports, he and another Glynn County officer went on to make false statements, and they claimed her car was a deadly weapon. An investigation by the GBI prompted the Glynn County Police Chief to determine they acted reasonably. Sasser's attorney was Alan David Tucker, the same attorney who first spoke out for the McMichaels. Earlier this year, a grand jury indicted the current Glynn County Police Chief and 3 high-ranking police officers on multiple criminal charges, including having sex with confidential informants. They were placed on leave from that just 5 days after Arbery was killed. The grand jury report concluded, quote, "There is an ongoing culture of cover-up, failure to supervise, abuse of power, and lack of accountability within the administration of the Glynn County Police Department." Just 2 weeks before Ahmaud Arbery was shot to death, we learned of a bill in the Georgia General Assembly that, if passed, it could give voting power to the citizens of Glynn County to dissolve the Glynn County Police Department. It's been tabled due to COVID-19 for now. Shelby Danielson, First Coast News, On Your Side.